All right, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. This is the Prop Time Live weekly CFB college football preview. We're on week 7 this week and October 12th, 2024. One of the most common wedding days of the year presents to us the one of the best college football slates of all time. This is your host, Johnny Elias. Sorry about the lag again. Not really sure why this is always an issue. I have great connection, but hopefully we get through this and there's not too much that interrupts. But before we start with the big games, and there are a lot, I did 5 that I prepared for. But before we get into the big ones, I do have some picks on 2 other games. The first is Eastern Michigan +3. I got them at -120. And then UMass +27.5 -105. So those games don't really have much meaning or anything like that. But trust me, we have some great ones in store today. Let me just give you a list of the ones that we're not going to have time to talk about today. Iowa, Washington. Florida, Tennessee. Minnesota, UCLA. BYU, Arizona. Georgia, Mississippi State. Well, maybe in a better year that would have been a good game, but I guess not now with Mississippi State. Syracuse, NC State. I think I forgot what I was going to say on that. What else do we got here? Louisville, Virginia. That's a solid matchup, even though it's not in the top tier. And Alabama, South Carolina, again, in another year. That could have been a great game. And yes, but I mean, the big games we got in store are just, I mean, I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped. The wife has to work. I'm watching football all day. It's going to be fucking fantastic with the prop show Friday. So we'll get propped up, get loaded up. I'm ready to go. So without further ado, the game we're going to start with is Texas, Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma's kept it close in recent years, if not winning. This is the largest that Texas has been favored in this, I believe, since 2008. I'm checking my notes here correctly. Largest favorite in the series for Texas since 2005, which was, just so happens to be the last time they won the national title. Texas, top 5 in yards per point, yards per game, and points per game margins this year. Oklahoma 4-1 on the season, but way less metrics, or way less close in the metrics, meaning a negative yard per point margin, for example. They're also pretty banged up at wide receiver. They're a pretty good quarterback in Hawkins, but it's going to be tough for him, I think, to lead them to an outright victory. You also have Quinn Ewers coming back this week after suffering a abdominal strain against UTSA a month ago. Arch Manning of the Manning family played basically at an elite level in his absence and is currently 7th among FBS signal callers with a 90.4 grade this season. I mean, Ewers is going to be the starter when healthy, but Manning he looked great, and Oklahoma has a very good defense. That's the one thing. If you're going to say anything about Oklahoma, it'd be talking about the defensive side of the ball. let's see what we have here. As far as some other stats here. Nothing really too crazy. I mean, you can go into some advanced metrics, but I don't see the need to do that. I will, in full disclosure, inform you that I've already placed a bet on Oklahoma plus 14.5 minus 110 at Novig. If you guys aren't on those apps, you are missing out. You can, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to bet thousands a game, there's not liquidity there for you. But if you're betting $100 a game, you can get some market value prices if you put in an order for even something just a little bit off. For example, I had it was 14. I put in an offer to get a 14.5 out there, and someone took it. So those orders generally get filled on there. I know the sweepstake model is kind of annoying, and it's really just an end round, but I would encourage you guys to get on there, particularly some college. The NFL, people are going to be less likely to take some off or some spreads that are off market. Okay, so that's gonna be a good one. Next one we're gonna go to is LSU at Ole Miss, and we have to understand with Ole Miss that they are number ones in yard per point margin and number one in yards per game margin. LSU, by contrast, is, I think, number 40 in the first and number 30 in the second. So they're really not even close. The big thing here with this game, I think, is just the rest advantage. This will be the 7th game in a row for Ole Miss. Meanwhile, LSU is coming off of a bye. The game is in Death Valley, which is never a lot of fun for the opposing teams. Ole Miss wide receiver Trey Harris, he leads the nation in receiving. He may not play. So a couple of things working here against Ole Miss. I did do a raw power rating dive here to get a side and a total for each game. For the last game, we had Oklahoma minus 13, so the 14.5 obviously got some value, and we did have our total number is 51.5. For this one, we have Ole Miss minus 3.5, and then an over/under of 62. Again, that's just where our lines are based off power ratings and other things like that. Let's see what else we're missing here on any of these. So another thing with Ole Miss, outside of LSU, they currently have 2 more ranked teams on their schedule. One is actually Oklahoma. We'll see if they lose to Texas, they'll probably be ranked. If they win, they'll be a lot better. And 5th ranked Georgia at home. And the Ole Miss offense relies heavily on shots down the field. I mean, deep shots, especially off play action. And over the past few weeks, they've completed just 3 of those 16 passes thrown beyond 20 yards. And because of that, they've been playing in some lower scoring games. So as prolific as their offense has been, we'll have to see what the total is. And we have it set at 62. I have a hard time believing that the power ratings are going to support a play on the under, but that's not the be all end all as far as that's concerned. But yeah, LSU at home, in Death Valley. Last year, LSU did a pretty good job limiting Dart's deep opportunities. Quarterback for Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, limiting his deep opportunities, but he just shredded them underneath, and LSU couldn't get any type of pressure on him whatsoever. And then in the end, they still allowed 55 points and couldn't get the win. So if Dart finds some explosive plays and they stop playing like shit, throwing the ball deep on play action, he could have an explosive game. Let's check the line on that right now compared to ours and just see if we have any opportunities here. All right, so I like Ole Miss -3.5. There are some -3s. There's a -3, -115 at DraftKings. There's -3, -110 at Circa. -3, -120 Bet Online. -3, -115 BetMGM. I may even go to Novig and just have someone try and fill that. -3.5, -107. If I get someone to take -3, -110. If these dumbasses, they see that -110, they might bite. So we may be looking for a play on that, or at least I might be. 62 is the total. That's exactly what we have. So given exactly what we have, I'll probably stay away from any total play there. All right. Next game we got is a fucking great one as well that they put on. I wonder if this was just coincidence, like if the schedule is aligned or if they meant to put all these games all on here. But this one's at 3:30, and we got number 4 Penn State taking on the USC Trojans. It's at USC. One thing right off the bat, people talk about, I think it makes more of a difference in college than it does in the NFL. But that cross-country road trip, have to go all the way cross-country. I mean, look at last week, Michigan. They lost to unranked Washington after traveling more than 2,300 miles to Seattle. One of the teams in this game, USC, lost to Minnesota after traveling more than 1,900 miles to Minneapolis. And in Miami, traveled 3,000 miles last week to Cal and needed a 25-point miraculous comeback to escape an upset. Penn State here, traveling across 3 time zones, almost 2,600 miles to Los Angeles in what's probably going to be the most hostile environment it's been in, other than not hostile, but hyped up environments, other than when they host Ohio State in November. Let's see what kind of other notes I had on this. USC's defense, they're improved than last year. They're allowing 16 points per game less and 117 yards per game less than last season. Against Michigan and Minnesota, though, when everyone knew those teams could run the ball, USC couldn't stop it. And Penn State is going to get back one of their better running backs. I think you would call him as RB1, Singleton, this week. But another thing to remember is USC has played a drastically tougher schedule than Penn State. They are at home. I like USC with the points +5. I just bet it shortly before we came on the show. There are some 5.5s out there. It does get down to some 4.5 somewhere, but you should be able to find a comfortable +5 somewhere. Alrighty. Moving on to perhaps the biggest overall matchup of the weekend. We all know what it is. It's Ohio State traveling across the country, sort of like we just talked about, to take on Oregon in Eugene. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Joe Rogan would say. Oh my goodness. Yeah, what a game. Probably has to be the biggest game of the year so far, besides Alabama, Georgia, and then the impact of Alabama, Georgia, with Alabama then losing. Is this a bigger game? I don't think so, but I think the winner of this probably catapults past Texas in the polls. Not that I don't give two shits about the polls, but I know some people do. So let's see what I have for some notes here in this one. Ohio State's defense ranks number one in yards per point number one in yards per point, yards per game, and points per game allowed. They have the best set of running backs and wide receivers in the country by our metric. Will Howard's been okay. I've watched Kyle McCord at Syracuse, with the exception of one game. I don't know how much of an upgrade, if any, that is, but that's a discussion for another day. Again, Ohio State, like the 100th most difficult schedule played so far, and all of a sudden they're popping into Eugene. It's going to be loud. It's going to be hostile. Oregon's kind of been up and down all year. They're doing all right defensively. Pro Football Focus has them tied for 8th in overall defensive grade, but they are 58th in run defense, and the defensive line, with respect to their run defense grade, is 95th. So our power ratings have it at Ohio State minus 4.5. Have an over under of 55.5. I'm not going to play that. That makes me a little bit nervous, and I know didn't really go over all the total with Penn State and USC, but we'll go back to that at the end if we have some time. But before we came on here, I did play some. I believe it was Ohio State -3. I just forget what the juice was. So I do have a wager on Ohio State -3. I did give it out. Oh, actually, it was at 105. I think it was -3, -104. So really like that. If 2.5 comes into play, I may look to take a little bit of a bigger position there. So anyway, the final game, at least I have here to talk about, is Coach Prime, Kansas State, taking on Colorado. Full disclosure, not really a big fan of Colorado, and try and not let emotions get into it, but I've actually made it kind of a killing betting against Colorado since he took over. I don't know if you guys remember last year. It was they're playing Oregon in Oregon. It was Oregon -21. That was probably the second biggest bet that I had last year, and they won by like a bajillion. And that's not the only time. I've done pretty well betting against them overall, and I will be betting against them here. Right before we came on, I took Kansas State, Kent State, -4, -110. Our power ratings have it as Kansas State -2.5. So I know, that probably doesn't make sense because it looks like I'm giving up maybe a little bit of value here and should be on the dog. But I want to fade the home dog here in Colorado. Kansas State is better than their stats, and they've absolutely played a tougher schedule. The only thing that worries me a little bit is Kansas State's quarterback, what's his name? I think it's Avery Johnson. He's just struggled with pass rush. And if they start getting home on him, it can be a long night for them. But I do think they have what it takes to keep Shedeur, quote unquote, in check. I mean, he's going to get his, but so yeah, I'm actually going the other way, going against my ratings a little bit. Just based on playing a tougher schedule, they don't look as bad as they aren't as bad as their stats reflect if you watch some of their games, and just with a home dog fade, and probably one of the most public home dogs that there will be, because everybody and their brother will bet on Colorado, as they do every weekend, not just this this absolutely great slate we got lined up on Saturday for us all. Just a reminder, Friday, probably anywhere between 6 and 7, the college football prop show, live hunt props. So some more college prop specific stuff. That's Friday. And hopefully tomorrow, we'll have some lunchtime, anytime scores. It's one of my favorite things to do for you guys. Hopefully you can catch some of those this week. But all right, ladies and gents, I got a Yankees team to root for, and they need me. They need me bad. They need me very, very, very bad. Very bad. We need a win. Like, we need air to breathe, and I think we're going to get it. I think so. All right, everyone. I got to run, but go Yanks. And as always, take it easy.